So this is what if Spider-Man was in Young Justice Part 4, guys. The last time I made Part 3 was 2 months ago. So guys, I am pumped. I'm gonna have the most energy I had for a long time in this video. I'm gonna be doing 3 episodes. Gonna be doing episode 9, some of 10, and then episode 11 and 12. Because episode 10, it's not really about Young Justice Team at all. It's mainly about Arsenal, or Red Arrow, he calls himself at that point in time. Red Arrow and Lex Luthor, blah blah blah, all that other stuff. It doesn't really, correlate or show as much as Peter changes the story in the slightest. So it's mainly going to be about episode 9, 11, and 12. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And let's dive now. Let's torpedo right into this what if. We start our story off with the beginning of episode 9, season 1. Pretty much, we see Megan wake up in the middle of the desert, her talking in Martian, and basically a scene that she has some sort of amnesia. She can't remember why she's on Earth and why she's in this outfit. And basically, she would have been, walking around. She would have tripped and she would have ran into Connor. Connor would have gone crazy since he would still be, his mind would be, pretty much, he would have amnesia. And amnesia's not really good for Connor since Connor doesn't even have a year of memories. Has a couple months of memories, but not even a year of memories. So Connor doesn't really have any more memories other than the fact that, the memories he had when he was in Katniss. Basically, we would see pretty much Megan would fight back to Connor, and Connor was about to go back to Megan and try to beat her, but he would just jump off, making being confused. But Megan would have thought, this isn't a dream, this isn't a nightmare. Basically, her, pretty much balling up. Now, basically, we get switched off from Megan, and we get hit with the Fire Season 1 intro. And basically, we continue with pretty much, Robin on some sort of mountain area, him also having some sort of amnesia, him not remembering anything, before or doing the events before Katniss, or before they came across Megan, Superboy, or anything like that. He forgot all he remembered all the way up until, episode 1. Basically, him not knowing what happened, before that. I mean, not past that, past episode 1. Basically, he would see a shirt with Superboy's logo on it, or the piece of Superboy's shirt on it, him being confused on, why he's here. We wake up with pretty much Artemis and Kid Flash basically waking up. Now, they would be talking the same way. Basically, Kid Flash saying, I'm Kid Flash, and him saying, I seen Kid Flash, he doesn't wear black. Basically, Wally being confused on why he's wearing black as well. Him not really knowing, but him saying it's a pretty good outfit. It's a pretty good look, isn't it? Basically, him, talking to talking to Artemis, and pretty much they would have ran out, or Wally would have gotten her and ran out since they heard a bomb go off. And pretty much we see 3 tanks and a couple of soldiers going towards them, trying to shoot them down and trying to, not let them escape. Basically shooting them. Basically, Wally would have been jogging, and pretty much he wasn't trying to, leave behind, Artemis. Now, basically, as the people were coming up to shoot them down, Wally grabbed Artemis and ran her out of the way since he knew Artemis couldn't take him on by herself. Basically, we see that he would be super speeding away, trying to get away from the car, trying to get away from, the shooting out, or the gun down. Basically, him running and running. Eventually, he would have been running. He would have ran up a cliff and all that other stuff. Basically, we would see him again flying around, trying to find out what was happening. Now, we would also see Peter. As McGann was flying around, we could switch to Peter. Basically, seeing Peter basically in the desert, or buried halfway through the dirt. Basically, him having flashbacks of almost getting suffocated by Sandman. He would have ripped to the, pretty much, a sand. Basically, him gasping for air and him taking off the lower part of his mask, like all the way up until his nose. Basically, he would start looking around, being confused of what's going on. He would have taken his mask off, but pretty much in this version, his mask wouldn't have been, would not be like his comic book mask that can completely take off. it would be kind of like the Flash's mask. So, the bottom of the neck part of his mask would have hanged off and been on his back. So he wouldn't, have to take his complete mask off to be, that. So basically, we see pretty much Peter look around being confused on where he was. Why is he in the desert? And why does he, not really why, but like he just confused on where is he. He's not in New York. Basically, the last thing Peter remembered is fighting pretty much a couple of his villains and being transported into a tunnel, into a portal, and him not remembering anything from that point. And basically, he would have been confused. He would have been looking around trying to call Tony or any of his friends like Miles and stuff like that. But he would have seen that it wasn't working. Sorry, guys. Peter wouldn't be coming across Miles at this point, since Miles in this universe, I might include him, like, if I get to season 3 with this What If, I might just replace what if Spider-Man was in Young Justice with what if Miles was in Young Justice Part 13 or something. Basically, we say pretty much Peter would have been looking around being confused, like really confused on why he's in the desert, since he's never been in a desert type of area for a long time with his, whole entire crime fighting thing. He would have been walking around, him not really knowing, him not having a lot of cliffs or a lot of area to swing around. So he would have been just sprinting through the sand and through the desert, and eventually he would have come across Connor. Connor would have seen him and would have torpedoed right towards him. Spidey would have dodged out the way as quick as possible, him putting back on his mask and him fighting up against Connor. Connor would have thrown punches towards Peter, since Peter had a lot more experience, and also he was a very profamed hero in his universe. And on top of that, he's Spider-Man. Basically, he would have dodged most of Connor's attacks and would have, started to win, since Connor was mainly focused by rage, and Connor is nowhere as strong as Superman. Basically, we see that Connor would have gone for blow after blow towards Peter, but he would have gotten some punches towards Peter, making Peter have some bruises on his chest, and him coughing up blood through the mask. Basically, Connor at this point, straight up about to just straight up murk Peter. Peter would have grabbed one of his fists or one of his punches, throwing him up into the air, and Peter sprinting off, trying to get away from the fight. He would have sprinted off, burying himself into some pretty much sand, basically camouflaging against Connor. Connor would have jumped off, and pretty much Peter would have unburied himself through the sand. He would have been looking around, being confused, very confused, on who that person was and why was that symbol on his chest. And for some reason, Peter saw that symbol as slightly familiar, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Now, basically, Peter would have been walking around, and as this was happening, we would see Megan would try to tap into her mind, and her getting some glimpses of her memories about how, the people here were part of her team and all that other stuff. Now, she would be starting to fly around, and we would see pretty much Wally started to look into his, contraptions on his suit, trying to find some, stuff to pretty much, fill himself up, since he didn't have any, of his protein bars to keep his metabolism still going so he wouldn't pass out, since of his speedster abilities. Well, we also see Superboy come out of nowhere and straight up land, smacking a literal doo-doo water out of Wally's face, and pretty much Artemis trying to fight up against Superboy. Superboy would have been running towards her, and we see that Artemis didn't really have any arrows to go or combat against Superboy. And basically, we see out of nowhere, a torpedo would come towards Superboy, pushing him down to the ground, making a crater where he was. We see that Artemis and Wally would have been knocked out, but Artemis would have gone back up, basically seeing Superboy jump towards the tanks, ripping them apart like a monster. Basically, going up against the soldiers left and right. And basically, we see that Artemis watching. Wally would have gotten back up. And basically, we see that Superboy would have started to destroy the tanks. Wally would have grabbed Artemis and would have sprinted her, super speed her away. And as he was running, he tripped on a rock and fell. But they fell right next to Peter. Now, Peter at this point was sitting down trying to rest. And basically, Peter would look at them saying, "Who are you guys?" And basically, Peter's spidey sense would have gone off, and he would have grabbed both of them and pushing them down to the ground, hearing pretty much guns going down on them. Basically, the bullets would have miraculously, they would have dodged out of the way. And basically, see that Artemis would try to shoot an arrow towards the pretty much, jets. And basically, Peter would have tried to shoot some of his webbing or his electric webbing towards the jets, but would have seen that he was out of web fluid. And basically, we'd also see Wally, Artemis, and, Megan show up. Or Megan would show up against Peter, Artemis, and Wally. Megan would have told them that, we are a team and blah, blah, blah. Basically, basically Spidey saying, I've been on a couple teams, and I'm pretty sure I've never been on your guys' teams. And basically, he would have said, so, where's New York? Basically, them being confused, what's New York? Basically, Peter being confused and also very, saying, where am I? Basically, pretty much them talking, and Megan would have grabbed Peter and would have, shocked him with the memories he needs. Basically, her using a little bit of her power to give some of the glimpses she saw through her, whole entire, mind explanation or mind, thing. I don't even really know, but basically, he would have, told pretty much, he would have told Peter, who he was. Not who he was, but where he is. He's in another universe and blah, 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 all the other stuff. Megan having some glimpses of the team, but also having glimpses of the whole entire, meeting Peter for the first time. And basically, as Peter sees this, he says, oh, that's why I'm here. Basically, he would have been looking around, and basically we'll see all of them pretty much, go around trying to figure out what's going on. We can switch back to Robin, basically getting back to the area or the place they last left that he has memories of before he lost, the memories from that point. Basically, him taking out the soldiers that were, camping there and pretty much taking them out in a matter of minutes. Basically, we will see that pretty much Robin would have taken out multiple of the soldiers, but as he was doing that, he would see that pretty much the rest of the team would have shown up, taking down the soldiers as well. Peter webbing down some of the soldiers at the same time as, Artemis was shooting arrows. Now, Wally and Robin would have shown up. Basically, since Wally and Robin knew each other before the whole entire, Katniss thing, they would have had, memories of each other. And basically, they would have started to talk, and pretty much, Megan would have, told Robin about how they're a team and blah, blah, blah. And basically, as they're doing this, basically we see that, Wally, starts messing around, and he finds out, he has a switch feature on his outfit. Basically, pressing it off and on, knowing that, he could switch off and on through his suits. And basically, they would all try to, check it out, but basically, they wouldn't really know what's going on. Why would keep on doing it, but pretty much Artemis would have told him to focus. Now, pretty much Megan would have tried to show them all her memories as well at the same time as she did before, as she did before with Peter in more of a small manner. And basically, she would have told them, or would have, given them the memories she had. Basically, them remembering, and pretty much remembering everything. The mission, why they were sent there for Queen Bee on an island. Basically, multiple other things. And basically, they were showing their memories, and basically they would have all said Calder. Basically, them trying to find out where Aqualad was, because he had gills, and we've been searching around this desert for over 24 hours. And that's not good for a guy with gills, and that needs hydration to stay alive more than anybody else. Basically, they would have started to search around where Calder could be, and basically, they would have found an area that Calder could be at. Now I can switch back to pretty much the people that were there, or the people or the scientists that worked with the soldiers that attacked the team earlier. Basically, them searching and testing on a weird looking orb and also Superboy. Now they would start talking about what was going to go on, but then they came across Calder's body. Now pretty much Megan would have told Calder the whole entire or would have showed Calder her memories, or the team's memories, and basically Peter would have started to look around, jumping on cliff, or jumping off rock to rock, trying to figure out, where's Connor. Now basically, as they're thinking about this, basically, we get switched off from that point where we see Megan infiltrate the science area, basically seeing that Superboy was getting experimented on. She would have flown in there, taking down the soldiers, and basically she would have came across the other telepath that was there that, previously knocked out Connor. Now she was put into kind of a mental battle of sorts, and she started to fight against, the other, mental, or pretty much the other, psychic. Now they would start to fight, and basically from that point when they were fighting, we will see that pretty much Magon was, getting some help from Robin, Peter, Wally, and pretty much Artemis. Now, as soldiers showed up, Peter said, "I got this," and would have sprinted out or super jumped up into the air, wiping all the soldiers down to the ground before they could even shoot off their guns, making, well, the least noise ever, taking out the soldiers as quick as possible. Now, basically, we would see pretty much, well, Robin would have, well, disappeared. Basically, him coming back from, pretty much making sure the soldiers were knocked out so they couldn't call anybody, and basically would have said that situation's done with. They would have ran off with, Calder's body, basically, still, keeping them alive and all that other stuff. Now, as Megan was fighting the other, empath, or not other empath, the other pretty much psychic, basically, we would see that pretty much Connor was released. Connor pretty much was pulled into, well, the whole entire fight with Megan, and Megan would have told Connor, would have showed Connor their memories, making Connor snap back into reality. Now, as pretty much we'll be starting to fight. Basically, we'll see that pretty much, well, the other telepath was being, kind of folded by Megan, and Megan pretty much would have, bonded a little bit closer to Connor. And basically, as they were fighting, basically you would see this, end, and basically they would have defeated the telepath. Now he would have still, escaped, and basically that's where I'm gonna leave off here. Now, the other team would have left. They would have, got their mission slightly done, and basically they would have left from that point, and we would be more switched to episode 10. Now, basically, episode 10 will start off with basically, well, pretty much a kind of a, well, kind of a Cat Gordon type of message on the news area, basically talking about the new, pretty much, well, secretary of the new, well, person for the president, basically about the whole, legal laws in the world right now. Now, at that point, none of the story would have actually changed in the slightest at all, actually, and basically, I'm basically going to be skipping most of all of episode 10, because episode 10 was mainly just about Red Arrow. And basically, the only things we would see from, pretty much Peter and Superboy, we would see Superboy and Peter, and also Megan get ready for school. Basically, Peter getting ready for school, but him saying, "Why am I redoing school? I was already kind of in school. I was like in my, I was like in my senior, like, I guess, freshman, or pretty much, at that point, I think I brought Peter. Peter was about like 15, probably 16 when I brought him back in this universe. But basically, pretty much, at that point, they would have gotten ready for school since Peter still had to keep a representation of this new world. And on top of that, Peter did still need to get his education. And basically, Peter was at the real world where he was gone, he would have been losing a lot of, school days. Basically, him needing to catch up on some, well, school, stuff. And basically, luckily in this universe, for some coincidence or reason, basically Peter would have found out that this school was teaching the same things he left, and pretty much he was learning the same things his classmates in his universe would be learning. Basically, we see pretty much Superboy would run up against a kid that had a, pretty much a merch shirt on. Basically, before Connor can even see the other kids with it, Peter would have told him that it's a merch shirt. It's a shirt that everybody wears to show their appreciation towards heroes. Basically, Connor would have said, oh. Basically, him dropping the kid and pretty much saying that he was wrong. And basically, you see he had a little squabble with the other kid, or pretty much, well, the other squabble with the other kid. He was about to go back to the kid and beat him up, but Peter and Megan stopped him at the same time. Now, the other two kids, or another two kids would walk up to them, talking to them, trying to, well, familiarize themselves with them. And at that point, we switched off to the rest of the episode. We see Red Arrow, pretty much not Tigers, I guess, the Assassin, Sportsmaster, and all of them talk. And we can switch back to school. And at the school, it really wouldn't change that much since Peter would be there, but he wouldn't really be talking, and he would just try to learn. And basically, at that point, pretty much we would be switched to near the end of the episode where we see Alcalad and Red Arrow would infiltrate, take down the assassins that are there, blah, blah, blah. Basically, well, just doing their thing. Basically, none of them really changed. Now, for the whole entire football scene, with, Megan trying to try out for the cheerleaders, basically, she would have been, introducing the cheerleaders by, getting dunked on by water. And basically, Superboy would have seen this as, a threat, him jumping up, but he would have tripped, falling down to the ground. Basically, Peter would have grabbed him by the back of his jacket, saying, I don't really think you want to, make your, well, reputation as the kid that trips over bleachers. Basically, him pulling Connor back up. Connor was said, thanks, I guess, Peter. Basically, him scoffing and walking off from Peter off the bleachers. Basically, Peter would have jumped off all the bleachers stylishly, landing Spider-Man like. Basically, him saying, that's pretty cool. And basically, he wouldn't really care since in this universe, well, he would still be in this universe, but still at the same time, he didn't really care since he didn't know anybody here. And also, no one really knew about Spider-Man just yet in this universe. So yeah, so basically, pretty much, we see pretty much, well, Aqualad, Red Arrow, and Sportsmaster the Assassin all duke out back at the pretty much back at the secondaries areas, or like the talking for, what was it? I think the legal issue that was in the episode. Basically, pretty much the episode would be lived off there, and Red Arrow and Aqualad would have left off on moment still being friends and all that other stuff. Basically, we would switch off there. We would see Lex Luthor talking to Ra's al Ghul. Now I'm gonna leave it off here, and we're gonna be switching off to episode 11 and 12. So let's get to it. Episode 11, Terrors. Now basically, we begin our story with pretty much, well, the Terror Twins fighting up against Superman and Martian Manhunter. Basically, as they were fighting, basically, we see pretty much the Terror Twins would have landed in some sort of area. Basically, them being, captured by Red Tornado and Aqualad, them having inhibitor collars put on them, but also pretty much, well, Connor and Megan and also Peter showing up. And basically, we see that pretty much Connor and Megan would have started to, talk about how this was going to be, kind of a stealth mission. Peter would have been there to be, not to be undercover, but basically him doing, kind of, well, extra hands in case the Terror Twins put up a real good fight. And basically, they would have been, undercover mission to basically infiltrate pretty much, pretty much Reef or the supervillain prison. And basically, as was happening, basically what would be happening is Peter wouldn't really been in this episode at all. Him staking out with, Aqualad, but basically none of the real episode being about Peter himself or him being a part of the episode that much. And basically, we can switch off to episode 11, since episode 11, I'm sick and tired of narrating it, so I'm just going to be skipping that, and plus, none of the other Justice League members were introduced, or were even, mentioned in episode 11, so we're going to be switching on to episode 12 and 13. So basically, we continue with episode 12. Basically, we start our story off with pretty much, well, about Artemis's past. And basically, as we see this happening, basically, we also see a flashback of Peter having a dream about, well, his past life. And about Uncle Ben, well, about him leaving and Uncle Ben following after him. And him seeing Uncle Ben get shot down. Basically, him waking up from the memory of the dream, sweating, and starting to cry. Basically, we get switched off from there the next morning, and basically, you would see a Superboy and Megan would have started to kiss since, the whole entire gel thing about, them being closer and them becoming more or less an item of some sorts. If you've seen episode 11, just see it. Basically, we see that pretty much Wally and Peter would have walked up to them saying, you guys are getting awfully close. Basically, Megan would have still had a little bit of doubts, but she would like Superboy more since Superboy and her would have had more of a connection. And she, knew some things about Peter, but basically she didn't really know, she had mixed feelings about Peter. But she still, wanted to be with Superboy. And basically, we'll see that Aqualad and Red Tornado would have been talking about the whole entire mole and the team. And basically, we see that Red Tornado would have left saying that he's a fill-in for, Green Arrow, since he has a hot date with, Black Canary. Now, as, well, pretty much Artemis was about to go back to the hall, or pretty much back to the, cave, basically she would get interrupted or come across, Robin. They would have started to talk, and pretty much Robin would have said, okay, let's go. Basically, them getting into the, phone the phone area, or pretty much the tortoise. I don't really know what it's called. That phone booth that pretty much most people use in New York City. They would have walked into it, them being teleported into Mount Justice. Basically, it being covered in, not it being covered, but pretty much havoc starting in the middle of the area. Basically, them getting blasted and ambushed by some sort of not seen force, getting blasted with fire and explosions. Now they would have started to sprint off pretty much as they were getting blasted with explosions. They would have started to see floods of water blast towards them, being confused on what was going on. And basically, they would get flared around, and basically, they would, start looking around, and they would see a fire tornado following them through the gym area and through Mount Justice. They would have started to talk on the comms, trying to figure out what was going on, but all they would hear is, well, Peter, instead of just static. Basically, Peter would have been telling them that just stay calm and stay in the shadows and get out of the way of those things. Basically, them being confused. What do you mean things? And pretty much the comms would have broken up since Peter was heading towards the vents, and basically his comms started to break up. Now, basically, in this version, Peter would have been able to be sneaky away, or sneaky enough, and be, kind of, Spidey-like, and basically he was able to pretty much get out of the way, or pretty much been able to, well, sneak out of the way of the robots, or not really the robots, but sneak out of the way of the enemies. And basically, as, Robin and Artemis were getting their way out of the whole entire, enemy's way, they would have went up against the chimney or the smoke area where the pretty much stove was in the kitchen. And basically, they would have gone in there to the vents, and basically, they would have gotten out of the way just in time before the fire, came up the vents trying to attack them. Now, they would get down into the steam area, or pretty much the piping area of Mount Justice, and they would start to run away. Basically, them seeing some sort of silhouette of a woman on fire basically following them. Or it not really knowing where they are, but it just making huge amounts of fire to try to smoke them out. Basically, Robin would have seen that, the heat pressure in the room is going off the charts, and basically they needed to get out there as fast as possible. And pretty much steam all around the room started to go crazy. They were about to leave when they pretty much get spotted by the fire, woman, and started to get blasted with, pretty much fire. As they're trying to look for the other vent, basically, instead of Artemis finding it, it would be Peter that opened up the vent, telling them to follow him. They would have jumped on the vent pretty much before Robin left. He would have left, pretty much the explosive behind for the firewoman. Basically, him plugging into the system to try to figure out, where they were, to try to hack into the camera systems. Now, Peter told them that you don't have to do that. Basically, him telling them about the thing that happened, about how it was a huge explosion, and about the robots, instead of them finding out on their own. Basically, him telling them about the robots that ambushed them, and it was a huge puff of smoke, basically fire, and pretty much damage everywhere. Him saying that I was the only one that got away. Him webbing up into the vents before he could get captured, and him going up into the vents and getting away, and him, pretty much, camping in a certain area of the vents, trying to keep away from the robots. Now, pretty much, they would have said, are they okay? Basically, Peter saying, I don't know for long. I've been trying to figure out a plan to take them out, but I haven't got there yet. Basically, they would have been starting to talk around, and they were, pretty much, they're stuck in, they sneaked out into pretty much the book area, trying to find a way to get into the secret entrance in the book area, but basically, they would get ambushed by the fire robot, or the fire android, and the water android. Basically, Peter telling them that they were androids. Basically, Peter's fire sense going off before Artemis can, pretty much run towards the robot, thinking that the robot was Red Tornado. Basically, Peter told him not to, and pretty much they would have hid. But at the same time, Peter would have seen that, it was Red Tornado, or a little like Red Tornado, and he would have peeked over him not being seen by the robot, but him seeing that the robot wasn't Red Tornado. He would have told him to sneak off, and they would have found the entrance, or the entranceway, but without getting, caught, or without getting spotted. Basically, them getting out of the way. Now, as they're running around, basically, we would see switch back to Megan, Aqualad, and pretty much Third Boy and Wally getting captured. Basically, Megan and Aqualad being captured at a fire cage. Basically, pretty much, what was it? Superboy and pretty much Wally being captured in some sort of ice or middle that's keeping them stuck. Now, basically, we see the water android was about to drown them since they couldn't get away. And they were also stuck. Basically, the water android about to, just mark them. But basically, we see that water android would have flooded the tunnels trying to go after the team. As Artemis gets captured or gets grabbed by the water android, we would see before Robin could do anything, we would see pretty much Spidey dropkick the literal gears out of the water android's face, basically leaving a little bit of wires open. Basically, Peter telling them to go. Now they would have swam up, basically looking around. Before they can look around, they started to get blasted by fire over fireballs by the fire android. They would have picked up their heads near Wally and Superboy, and Spidey would have said, "I can get you out of here." Basically, him using most of his strength to try to rip the middle off of pretty much Superboy and Wally. He would have started to rip the middle off, trying to rip it off as hard as possible. Basically, him getting nowhere, but him leaving a little bit of a fingerprint of his fingers, or like a little bit of a dent of his fingers in the middle, but seeing that it was bending, but it didn't break. Now, basically, the water android would have followed them up the surface, about to attack them one more time. And basically, we see that Peter was looking around, seeing that they were cornered. But pretty much, he would have grabbed Artemis and pretty much Robin, jumping up in the sky as jumping up in the air as hard as possible. Him jumping up, basically, jumping upwards on top of the area where the fire cage was at, where pretty much Artemis, fire cage was, where pretty much Aqualad and where Aqualad and Megan was. Basically, they would have seen and they would have started to look around, basically seeing that nothing was going down, and basically they were getting cornered. Basically, Peter grabbing Peter, Spidey grabbing Robin and Artemis, chucking them off the area. Basically, him saying to go, him fighting up against both of the androids, him saying I have some experience with robots. Basically, him fighting them, him going all out, him punching the robots left and right, throwing punches over and over against the robots, throwing them around like ragdolls, and punching them over time. Now, the fire and the water attacks were getting towards Peter. Since Peter's gone up against water attacks like water villains like Hydro, it also gone up against water villains like Pyro and stuff like that. Basically, he didn't really have that much of a, he had a lot of experience with these. So he started to take him out one by one using their elements against each other. But basically, it was getting too much, and he was getting kind of, pretty much overran. Or what was it? He was getting overwhelmed. Now that they were fighting, basically, Robin and Artemis were actually moving very more quickly since they knew that Peter wasn't going to be able to take both of them on for much longer. Now, basically, they would have got hit up the same plan they had originally, and basically, as they were about to hatch their plan, basically, the plan would get, kind of failed. Basically, seeing that, Superboy would have fell into the water, was beginning to get drowned by the water android, since Peter was already in a fire type of rope instead of a cage, him being burnt over and over in his arms and his chest. Basically, him being restrained in fire ropes. Artemis was seeing, Peter getting burned alive, nearly burned alive, and basically seeing, pretty much Robin getting drowned, Artemis would have seen Megan and Aqualad stuck in a fire cage, burning up. Basically, also seeing Wally and Superboy about to get drowned, and basically, pretty much Robin would have been released out of the water android, thinking that he's dead. Basically, Spidey's still over time getting burned more and more. Spidey would have said enough. Basically, him blasting out of the fire, him going beast mode. Pretty much him going full on rage. Now, basically, he would have started to kick around the androids left and right, while pretty much Artemis hearing huge yelling, and pretty much just hearing, middle clash and clunk. Basically, hearing a little bit of blood splatter since, Peter was punching them hard, like punching holes into the androids' bodies. And basically, as Artemis was walking around, she, found her inspiration to overcome her fear, and basically came in there as a boss, tricking their androids, and basically setting off the, plan they had, basically, sending the MVP off, basically making the androids go offline, and all the damage they did, go offline as well, making the Mount Justice lower area be unflooded, the fire disappear, and pretty much the androids fall onto the ground. Basically, Peter dropping the fire android down to the ground. So the fire android had a huge hole in its stomach since Spidey was about to rip it apart, Mortal Kombat style. Now Spidey left the robot down to the ground, seeing that his hands of his suit were ripped apart, and also he had burn marks on his suit as well. Him saying, "How am I gonna fix this?" Now pretty much Robin would have woken up by the whole tire halfway being drowned to death, and basically Artemis would have said, "Are you okay?" And Robin saying, "Never been better." Now basically, pretty much at that point, they would have all, tried to get Superboy and Wally out of the way, or out of the, thing they were in. Basically, Spidey saying, "I can do this." Him punching over and over towards the, things they were stuck in. Pretty much him punching and punching. Punch holes and handprints in the middle, but never, actually cracking it or breaking it. Now, Peter would have started to rip it more and more. Basically, Connor saying it's okay. They'll find a way to get us out. Basically, Peter would have said okay. And pretty much Megan would have said, "Your suit, it looks horrible." Basically, him saying, "Thanks. Yeah, I didn't mess up my self-esteem at all." Her saying, "I don't mean like it looks horrible. I just mean like, it's all ripped and burnt." Basically, him saying, "Yeah, I know." And basically, pretty much Artemis would have tried to set off the MVP. Oh, was it Artemis would have tried to laser him out, but wasn't the laser would actually work, seeing that MVP was down. Pretty much, Red Tornado would have been touched by a red electricity by the androids when he touched them. Basically, him being overridden by the same code that they had, him attacking the league. Now they would all lose oxygen since Red Tornado took their oxygen, knocking them out. Basically, Peter being knocked out as well. Superman and the rest of the Justice Leaguers would have shown up. Basically, them, helping pretty much Superboy and pretty much Wally out of the things they're in. And basically, we'd also see Artemis talk to Superboy, the rest of the league, about the whole entire, Red Tornado things. And basically, Robin would have also thought this as well. And basically, as they're doing this, basically, we leave off on episode 12. Now, basically, we switch to episode 13. We switch to the beginning of episode 13, where we see 3 hunters in the forest looking for something. They would have came across a gorilla with a machine gun for some reason, shooting them down. Now, basically, we get hit with the fire intro of season 1, and then we get seen Robin and Aqualad talking about the mole. And as they were talking about the mole, we would see that Superboy would overhear this, him running towards Aqualad, and all the team hearing this and basically being kind of mad towards Aqualad. Peter also being mad as well. Basically, we see it pretty much Captain Adam or Captain Marvel would have been called. Pretty much since Red Tornado was out and he couldn't supervise them. Pretty much a bunch of leaguers were rotated or was about to get rotated to help the team and supervise them. And basically, we would see that pretty much Captain Marvel would have been given a kind of Captain Adam would have been given the task. Captain Adam would have given the task to basically look after the team. Now, as the team was given an assignment to go after a guerrilla attack in Gotham City, they were kind of disrespected, saying how we, guessed it as like a guerrilla chase. Robin saying, why? Basically, him saying, because Robin said, "You're joking." Basically, Batman was saying, "I never joke about the mission, ever." Basically, him giving the same speech as well, like in the beginning. Now, basically, we say Peter would have scoffed after Batman said this, and Batman would have told Peter to shut up. Basically, him walking off, and then being told about their mission, and then getting into the battleship about to go on their mission. They would have walked away from Aqualad, basically not really caring about Aqualad that much. Now, as Aqualad, kind of felt sad about this, Peter would have shut him up saying, "I don't blame you, dude. I still tell my team stuff, but you don't have to be that, mad with yourself." And basically, we'll see the team, get ready. Pretty much Wally activating his stealth, his stealth mode alongside the other team. Basically, Peter activating his stealth mode into kind of a, a suit version of his spider suit. Now, during the whole entire, as he was getting burned and his suit was all ripped up. Basically, his suit would get slightly modified. Basically, his suit would have been a more lighter type blue and red, more vibrant and more approaching and more classic looking. Basically, it looking better because the colors are kind of dull in his first suit. Basically, him, saying that pretty much Megan saying your suit looks way better than before. Basically, him saying, yeah, I changed the colors a little bit. And also I made it out of a fabric that's fireproof and also, electric proof and also doesn't rip as easily. And basically, he would have pressed his spider logo, basically him having, his stealth suit on. Now, his stealth suit, eventually, guys, I am going to give Peter the black suit symbiote, but pretty much Peter's stealth suit is similar to the black suit symbiote, but more of still the same suit, just the different colors. Spidey's stealth suit would have been also modified, basically being more of a tech-based type of the black suit. Now, basically, eventually, guys, I am going to give Peter the symbiote suit, but yeah. So basically, pretty much the suit would be more tech-looking. Basically, the symbiote, or not the symbiote, the logo being a lot more embiggened and larger, and also instead of the white blocks on the back of his hands like the symbiote suit will have, since Peter already came across the symbiote, basically, I am going to be introducing symbiotes in the DC universe as well. So in this universe, all symbiotes are going to be, universal. So yeah, basically, Peter basically was shown, pretty much him saying, I like this new design. Doesn't really remind me of, my past type black suit. Megan saying, what's your past black suit like? Basically him saying, you don't want to know. Basically, pretty much Spidey and the rest of the team would have gotten ready for their mission, them going stealth like. Basically, as pretty much Peter would have followed after pretty much Robin and Speedy, or Robin and Kid Flash, basically following them. Basically, Robin would have started to look around, them talking about Aqualad, and the rest of the team just talking about Aqualad in general, about how he lied to us and all that other stuff. As they were walking, you will see that pretty much Captain Atom and Captain Marvel and Aqualad would have came across two type of animals that are supposed to be extinct, that were some sort of modified animals. And the rest of the team would have gone up against these modified animals as well. So Connor being cornered by modified giant wolves, and also Robin and Wally, and also Peter being cornered by some sort of giant prehistoric type, what was it? Vultures. Now, as we see crocodiles or some sort of giant, extinct type crocodiles basically try to fight up against, Megan and Artemis. Basically, we see that Megan saves Artemis's life since Artemis was covered or grabbed by the back of her quilt to pretty much get pulled underwater by the crocodile. Basically, her getting saved by Megan. Now, pretty much they would have been, taken down their, pretty much situation pretty quickly. And basically, from that point, you would also see pretty much Robin and Kid Flash get away from the prehistoric giant vultures. Basically, us seeing Peter swing to tree, swinging it up to one of the vultures and pushing it down or punching it down to the ground. Him shooting multiple other type of high-tech weapon he modified, basically shooting electric webbing and also metal webbing. Basically, pretty much webbing that can come out as pretty much a rope, not as a punch webbing, as splat webbing, but mainly it being made to mainly just be able to pull things together or to keep things from going away, like a kind of an anchor. And basically, the webbing would have been a great type of webbing. Basically, it coming out of his web shooters, it basically having the same consistency as a metal rope that mainly keeps up, flags and also multiple other things, and pretty much would have pulled down almost all the vultures down to the ground, knocking them out. Now, Captain Marvel was told about the entire collar thing from, Aqualad, and Captain Atom would have taken off the collar from, the animals they were fighting, basically see that the animals were kind of friendly and they just walked off after they were released. Now basically we see that Captain Adam and Aqualad are talking and pretty much they call into the rest of the team about the collars, but basically, yeah. So basically they tell the collars about this and pretty much they tell the team about the collars and pretty much they start going after the collars. Basically, us also being searchable for that, us saying that pretty much the crocodile, pretty much what was it, the tiger and also a gorilla or gorilla basically will use some sort of electricity device to pretty much knock out Captain Marvel and take him and pretty much about the experiment on him. That we see pretty much Wally and Robin and all the rest of the team talking, basically us saying that pretty much, well, all the team would start talking telepathically, basically see us get swept back to Superboy fight up against the giant wolves. And basically, we see that Aqualad would have seen, the whole entire beams of electricity, looking around and pulling them apart. Basically, him looking around, seeing that somebody was dragged. Him looking around, seeing that Captain Marvel was dragged away and captured. Now, as Wally and Robin are talking, basically they start saying under your leadership, nah. Basically, them refusing to try to go after Captain Adam, Captain Marvel at under under his leadership. Basically, we get switched pretty much us saying that we basically see that pretty much Peter would have really gone up against this since Peter didn't really care. If he just wanted to get this mission over so he can get back home and pretty much modify his suit a little bit more. And basically, pretty much we will see pretty much pretty much Megan and Artemis and the rest of the team been told by Lander or pretty much Aqualad about told that you choose me to lead and you're gonna go under my leadership. Let's switch off to this when we see Captain Adam basically getting captured or held prisoner by the Mind. Basically, let's see that the Mind was gonna cut open Captain Adam's head and control him. I mean Captain Marvel, sorry guys. I'm more used to calling him Shazam. Basically, see the Gorilla would help with this whole entire procedure. It was about to help. Basically, us seeing the rest of the team would be camping outside of the base, seeing that pretty much they took down multiple of the robots that were left after they took down the force field that was keeping everybody out. Basically, them being ambushed by multiple other mind-controlled monkeys. Basically, them going after the collars, knocking out the monkeys, and turning them peaceful. Them running away. As we see them run away, basically we see Megan tries to sneak through Gorilla or sneak away from Gorilla past them into the building, but Gorilla scissors this and grabs Megan and throws her down to the ground, knocking her out. Gorilla basically is about to take her down even more. Basically us seeing Wily would have ran towards Gorilla trying to stop him. Now Wily would get pushed back, but Peter would have swung up and clutch, basically him swinging into Gorilla, punching him or drop kicking him into the chest, knocking him out. Basically, let's say Peter would have told him to go. We would get switched off from there inside the building where we see pretty much Captain Marvel would have seen that pretty much the tiger was trying to disobey the Mind. They're trying to save Captain Marvel, but we get stopped when pretty much we see that we basically see that pretty much Captain Adam would have been Captain Adam would have been told, but the whole entire thing. Sorry guys, jeez guys, sorry. I'm doing this when I'm sick, so yeah. As the rest of the team go in, basically, they're not blasting to the wall this time since they got past Gorilla. They would have pretty much gone through the entrance area basically. Gorilla and the Mind trying to fight up against them. Pretty much Gorilla would have tried to fight up against them. Him getting that 1-2-3 piece combo, basically getting folded in less than 2.3 seconds with the help of Peter. Basically, him being taken down pretty quickly. As he was taken down, the Mind was about to fight back with all the tech he had and just pretty much a robotic body, but he would have hit the lights. Him disappearing with Gorilla. them being confused on where he went. Basically, Peter also being confused as well. And basically, you have to see this. They released most of all the animals from the, well, pretty much, well, basically from the collars. And basically, we see pretty much that, well, Wally tries to take the souvenir, like Gorilla Gorilla's hat, but see, or gets told that it probably has fleas, since Gorilla Gorilla's a giant gorilla, and, you know, I'm not gonna wear a hat that gorilla wear. So basically, Wally takes it off and throws it down to the ground. Basically, well, pretty much Peter keeping a souvenir, basically him having a souvenir of one of the collars that are intact. Basically, pretty much, as you see this, pretty much what was it? Pretty much Silver Boy makes friends with one of the white wolves, or the wolves that were there, and basically, well, pretty much they became acquainted, and they kind of restore their team back to where it was, but not fully. Them still having doubts about, well, Alkalad's leadership. Now, basically, we see that pretty much Robin and Alkalad have a little bit of disagreement, and basically this goes downhill. But basically, you see that Captain, Marvel pretty much tells them that, you did good. Basically, him saying goodbye, them saying, you leaving already? Him saying, I gotta go. Him flying up into the sky and leaving. They would have gone back to the bio ship, and they were, going on their way to basically, back to the, team. I would see pretty much Captain Adam flying to one house, grabbing a cookie jar, him supposedly still living with his dad. Basically, a scene showing that Captain Marvel, is, a kid. Billy Batson, Shazam. Basically, I left off there, and this will be the end of episode. End of episode 13. No, guys, halfway through this, I started to feel really sick, started to tear up, and I just had a really stuffy nose. So, sorry, guys, if halfway through the video, my energy started to go down. But basically, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day.